So those were the live visuals of Prime Minister being there, warmly received by the members of the Indian community there in Bangladesh, in Dhaka there. In fact, we stay with our rolling coverage. Once again, those viewers who are joining us on this special presentation on DD India, welcome to a special broadcast, special presentation, India-Bangladesh Ties Golden Jubilee. We stay with our rolling coverage. We get you minute-to-minute update on Prime Minister Modi's two-day Bangladesh visit, which is already kick-started. Remember, this is important because this also happens to be first overseas country, the Bangladesh, that Prime Minister is paying a visit during the pandemic times. He is in Bangladesh on the invitation of his counterpart Sheikh Hasina to participate in the National Day celebrations on 26th of March. That is today, and that's a very important event that's going to take place in a moment from now. He will be participating in the National Day celebrations. That's one event. We will also getting you live visuals, which is commemorating with the birth centenary of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the father of the nation of Bangladesh. This is Prime Minister's first visit to a foreign country since the outbreak of COVID pandemic, which highlights the kind of priority India attaches or India accords to the relationship in Bangladesh. In fact, the Prime Minister had last visited Bangladesh in 2015. DD India and DD News, we have a largest team of reporters there on ground to track Prime Minister's Bangladesh visit. 2 days there. It's a packed schedule. I'm Sakar Bhatt, and let's now talk about what all has happened so far. Let's roll out those visuals when earlier Prime Minister reached Dhaka this morning, and we talk about that as well. He reached Dhaka this morning. Prime Minister was accorded a ceremonial welcome, and Prime Minister upon arrival was accorded a ceremonial reception as well. He was received by Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh Sheikh Hasina. He reached Dhaka this morning on the invitation of Prime Minister of Bangladesh Sheikh Hasina, and these are the visuals earlier of Prime Minister's arrival at the VVIP tarmac of Hazrat Shahjahan International Airport in Dhaka. Prime Minister was also received by 19-gun salute. He was received by the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh there. He also inspected Guard of Honor, and then he was introduced to the Bangladesh presentation line, followed by India's presentation line, before he proceeded to motor cart. Okay, and Prime Minister paid floral tributes also at the National Martyrs Memorial. We're going to roll out those visuals as well there. Prime Minister planted a sapling there. Let's take a look. Prime Minister Modi earlier today also, these are the visuals of that particular event, National Martyrs Memorial in Savar, where he paid tributes to the 1971 Liberation War of Bangladesh martyrs. Remember, 1971 was not only about Pakistan's surrender, the way India crushed Pakistan, but also the birth of independent Bangladesh. After laying the wreath there, Prime Minister signed the visitors' book as well, besides planting a sapling out there. And in fact, today, earlier in the evening today, Prime Minister will be also arriving at a national parade ground, a big event being organized by the ruling dispensation of Sheikh Hasina. He will be received by the Prime Minister there, and Prime Minister will be attending the National Day program of Bangladesh there. That's going to take place in a few hours from now. After that, Prime Minister is scheduled to arrive at Bangabandhu International Conference Centre as well, where he's going to be jointly inaugurating the Bangabandhu Bapu Museum. And now let's quickly welcome the panel joining us on this special broadcast. Professor Dilwar Hussain, International Relations, all the way from Dhaka University. He's joining us. Professor Dilwar, thank you so much for joining us on DD News and DD India. And also Dr. Smriti S. Patnaik, Research Fellow from IDSA, joining us on this broadcast. We will continue to have with us Ramesh Ramachandran live from Dhaka. Ramesh is going to be with us, as well as our my senior colleague Rajesh Jha also continues to be with us from Dhaka. I'm going to quickly go across to our special guest joining us from Bangladesh, from Dhaka there. Professor Dilwar, over to you. Give us a sense what it really means for Bangladesh. Prime Minister Narendra Modi there on a day which is so significant, historic and momentous for all the people of Bangladesh.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It is absolutely, it's a very historic, from every aspect. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Bangladesh in a very, very difficult time of COVID-19 global pandemic. And also, he is in Bangladesh for the second time as a Prime Minister. And also, as you have been discussing, the very historic day for us, the 50th Independence Day for Bangladesh, and also it's a day of friendship between Bangladesh and India, and both the prime ministers from Bangladesh and India definitely they have already met each other, and I think it is an occasion of ceremony. At the same time, it is an occasion of diplomacy. So what I would like to argue that we are having a sort of diplomacy of ceremony where actually Bangladesh, India have actually celebrating their achievements, particularly over the last 12 years. Bangladesh has tried its best to change the canvas of Bangladesh-India relations that we had at some point of time in the mid 70s onward, and even before our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina coming to power in 2009, our relations had not been very, very well. So now we have seen that we have sort of a paradigm shift in relations. So now this visit of Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, and also the meeting with our Prime Minister, as you know, it is an occasion to mark the 1971 when actually Bangladesh received its greatest support from India, and that was so faithful for sealing the victory of Bangladesh in its liberation war. So,
and India played certainly a significant role, a decisive role rather. In fact, Professor Dilwar, we're so honored to have you joining us from Dhaka. Please stay with us. Let me also take an opening remark from Dr. Smriti Patnaik. Ma'am, very quickly, first of all, your thoughts on what our guest from Dhaka has to say, the kind of importance and significance Bangladesh accords to India, and for the optics, this is a very significant visit. The fact that Prime Minister chooses Bangladesh, being that first tour, the overseas tour where he goes out, and especially the timings of it, do you think it's a policy signal indicating a sort of resetting of ties with Bangladesh?
Thank you so much, and happy 50th to Dilwar on this Golden Jubilee Independence Day of Bangladesh. Now, I agree with what Professor Hussain has said. I think this is a very significant visit. As you said, definitely to a very large extent of resetting the ties. We have, the entire world is reeling under the COVID-19. But here I would also like to point out, under Prime Minister Modi, the neighborhood first, if you look at, this particular policy, he visited Bhutan first during his first tenure. And on the second tenure, if I'm not mistaken, he also visited Sri Lanka at that point of time. So, neighborhood has been a priority. And in most of his speeches, Prime Minister has always emphasized the importance of neighborhood. So in that context, if you look at, this particular visit, especially in the aftermath of COVID being the first foreign visit of the Prime Minister, I think it is significant. The second significance, I would say that it is the 50th year of Bangladesh's liberation, and it is also the 50th year of, the establishment of diplomatic ties between India and Bangladesh. So therefore, I think, especially today, when Bangladesh is celebrating its 50th anniversary of independence, I think, nothing can be as significant as, the day to day. And, he's going to Savar and, visiting the Martyrs Memorial also signifies that, Bangladesh's liberation was one of the significant, I think in the post-World War II, this is the first time a country has been established on the, basis of, the basis of, country has been carved out. So therefore, I think it is a extremely significant day, and it has a lot of meaning both for India and Bangladesh. The joint struggle, the sacrifices of the common people of India, in 1971. I think we should not miss the contribution of the common people opening their, house to the refugees, taking care of the refugees, looking after the refugees. It also symbolizes the sacrifices of the common people. And I think that needs to be celebrated on today. And this is the day where we commemorate those people who laid down their lives on both sides of the border on the day of liberation.
Absolutely. And let me quickly go across to my colleague Rajesh Jha, who also joins us from Dhaka. The fact that Bangladesh, Rajesh, was the first recipient of the COVID-19 vaccine. The humanitarian assistance also forms a very, very integral part as far as the relationship between India and Bangladesh is concerned. In fact, I remember the consignment was flown in by special aircraft. You've been there in Dhaka for a very long time now. How that people-to-people contacting, that humanitarian aspect of the relationship for the people, we might just discuss diplomacy part of it on, but actually, what does this really mean for the people out there in Bangladesh? The visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi today. Rajesh? Rajesh, can you hear me? Let's try and reconnect with Rajesh. Meanwhile, let me take this thought to Professor Dilbar. Any thoughts on that, sir? What this means for the people of Bangladesh?
Oh, yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, it is equally significant for the people. I mean, people are at the center of relations. Both the countries have been emphasizing, I mean, what they are doing. Actually, it is basically for the people. So people in Bangladesh definitely appreciate, I mean, what you have mentioned there, that is this COVID-19 vaccine and all the aspects that Bangladesh, India have developed over the last 10 years or more. I mean, the way our trade has expanded, connectivity has been expanded, and we are trading energy resources, and so people are definitely and you can also see that how actually movement of people, particularly people-to-people contact, has increased over the last 10 years. The number of people visiting, Bangladeshi people visiting India or people from India visiting Bangladesh has increased a lot. I mean, so yes, this visit definitely is very significant for the people and people-to-people contact, and it is an important dimension of Bangladesh-India relations.
But in fact, when India happens to be the first countries to recognize Bangladesh and establish diplomatic relations immediately after the independence in December 1971, just to put this in perspective, the bond that both nations share goes back to the month of December in 1971, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is a historic bond. It is a fraternity. It is a very special kind of relations that cannot be compared, or that we cannot see with other countries. That is very, very important. This is the essence, and this is the uniqueness of Bangladesh-India relations. And it is the relations of blood. I mean, as our foreign minister was saying that few months ago. So this is a very, very special aspect of Bangladesh-India relations that I mean, Bangladesh or India both do not have with other neighboring countries. So it is very special. So fighting a war, I mean, shoulder to shoulder, and it was a war against genocide by then Pakistani regime, and also it was war for our liberation. So definitely, I think this special bond, special fraternity based on 1971 sacrifices on both sides, as Dr. Shruti was mentioning. I mean, the sacrifice on both sides absolutely was so vital for Bangladesh's freedom, and definitely India. I mean, not only in December recognition. I mean, the way India responded. Yesterday it was Genocide Day in Bangladesh, and
Yes.
it was a day when Pakistan had the crackdown on Bangladeshi and Bengali, and particularly the university that I represent is the epicenter of genocide on 25th March 1971. So on the very first day, we know Indian Parliament, Lok Sabha was in a session. I mean, they issued a resolution, I mean, condemning this crackdown, and that actually started the very, very historic.
I would just request you to hold your thoughts there, sir. And we are showing on your screen, well, a while back when Prime Minister signed that visitor's book there at the National Martyr Memorial. In fact, I'm going to read out what Prime Minister wrote. This is DD exclusive, and I quote, in the visitor's book, the Prime Minister wrote, and I quote, "Their valor will continue to inspire future generations to fight injustice and defend the cause of the righteousness," unquote. This was Prime Minister Narendra Modi inscribing in the visitor's book at the National Martyrs Memorial. Let me quickly go across to Dr. Smriti. Dr. Smriti, let's take it from here. In recent times, this India-Bangladesh relationship, would you agree, has been touted as India's one of the best with any of the countries in South Asia? And the outcome of this two-day visit, the message that it sends across to the rest of the world groupings, whether you talk about SAARC grouping, BIMSTEC grouping, ASEAN, or for that matter, the G20 and so on, the larger message of it.
I agree with you, because Prime Minister himself, Prime Minister Modi himself has described, the bilateral relations as golden chapter in the bilateral relations. I think, this is a message which goes that in spite, you may have differences as far as your bilateral relations are concerned, but that does not restrain you to make progress on areas where the two countries can work. And probably India and Bangladesh have demonstrated that there are many areas the two can work together. The differences can be sought out. Some of the differences may take a longer time to be sorted out. So therefore, I would say that it is, any bilateral relations anywhere in the world is always work in progress. And while taking the positives in one's own stride, one should not actually, ignore the issues, which also is a matter of mutual concern. And I completely agree with you. The two countries are part of, various sub-regional and regional forum. They are part of the BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal sub-regional cooperation. They are part of BCIM, Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar cooperation. They are part of BIMSTEC, and they are part of SAARC. So therefore, bilateral parameter is not the only parameter where the two countries are working together. So there are several other parameters in which the two countries are, working together wherever they can, whether it is bilateral, multilateral, or regional. The two countries are cooperating and progressing.
Okay, I'm going to quickly go across to my colleague Ramesh, who continues to be live with us from Dhaka. And I'm requesting our guest from Dhaka to stay with us, Professor, stay with us, as well as ma'am, you as well, Ramesh. Yes, I was listening to your previous dispatch, Ramesh. Very interesting points that you made. This is, this has gone much beyond the relationship between India and Bangladesh. It is more about the new resurgent young Bangladesh that you talked about. A bit more on that. You've been there since last 48 hours. The sense that you are getting, I mean, is this going to trigger a new set of, energizing the state as much as they look up to India at this juncture?
Couple of points, Sakal. As I was mentioning, my colleague Amrit just a short while ago, if you happen to visit Dhaka and interact with people with a cross section of society, be it academics, scholars, journalists, students, activists, you get a sense that this is a new Bangladesh. This is a more reassured, self-confident Bangladesh, which has drawn the right lessons from history, but now is looking ahead to the next half century, learning the lessons and then implementing them for the benefit of the country and people going forward. So in the last several years, we've seen Bangladesh actually do better than most countries around the world in terms of economic growth. They are doing reasonably well in spite of the pandemic, number one.
I'm going to just interrupt you here briefly. Prime Minister there laying wreath. He signed the visitors book a while back, and now that's the wreath-laying ceremony live from Dhaka as we stay with these visuals. Earlier today, Prime Minister arrived at the Hazrat Shah Jalal International Airport. He was received by the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh there, including the Guard of Honor, inspecting the Guard of Honor, and then Prime Minister also planted a sapling at the memorial there, and now Prime Minister laying the wreath. Live visuals coming in from Dhaka. And ahead of Prime Minister's visit, needless to say, Bangladesh, there particularly Dhaka, the state capital, in fact, is all spruced up because the celebrations of the 50 years of their independence, the birth centenary of Bangabandhu, there's a lot happening in Bangladesh. In fact, we continue to stay with our panelists, Professor Dilwar joining us live from Dhaka. Dr. Smriti and Ramesh, I believe, is with us. Ramesh, please, you can continue with your point when you were talking about the birth of young Bangladesh now. Yes, go ahead. Ramesh. Okay, Ramesh can continue to be with us as we stay with these live visuals from Dhaka. A while back, we saw how Prime Minister, in fact, laid the wreath there. There was a brief wreath-laying ceremony. Bangladesh's national flag fluttering high. In fact, yes, Ramesh, if you could hear me, please go ahead with your point.
A cross-section of society, academics, scholars, students, business persons, you get a sense that this is a new Bangladesh. This is a more reassured Bangladesh, a more self-confident Bangladesh. Remember, a large percentage of the population is young, and demographic dividend-wise, Bangladesh can...
Can we just try and fix Ramesh's audio there? Meanwhile, Dr. Smriti, would you like to come in here?
Yeah, I agree with what Ramesh was starting, in the sense that this is a young Bangladesh, there is a youth world, but at the same time, I would also like to emphasize, the tradition of commemorating the liberation war, the war history. I think it has passed from generation to generation. There are many people around who actually had participated in the liberation war. So therefore, the young generation in Bangladesh, they are very well aware of their history. And also at the same time, as you said, it's a new self-confident Bangladesh. It is doing economically probably, really extremely well as far as the entire region is concerned. As far as the gender index is concerned, I think it is on the top of the list, and it is the 50th on the world, but it is top on in the South Asian region. It has in fact breached the gender gap.
Okay.
So therefore, I think it has made significant strides. And this reminds me of 1971, when some some people had defined that it is a bottomless basket kind of case. And look at where Bangladesh has been in the past few years, growing at more than 8.25% just before the COVID struck. And it is still, in the post-COVID scenario, it is also doing very well. One of the largest exporter of ready-made garment. And Bangladesh has emerged not as a, if one can say, a tiger economy, but also I would like to say that, as Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina had described in 2008 manifesto, I remember it very clearly, that Bangladesh would like to emerge as a hub, as a transport hub, as a transit hub, as a gateway to economy. I think she has kept her word, and look at the kind of connectivity projects which has come up in the past more than 10 years, whether it is the rail connectivity, road connectivity, wherever possible. Bangladesh has signed the Asian highway and the railway network. The coastal shipping is going to start between India and Bangladesh. So not just bilateral, this is open to connectivity project across the region.
Yes.
She has opened up both to Nepal and Bhutan. She has opened up the port. Bangladesh has invested in the energy project in Bhutan, if I'm not mistaken, $1 billion US. There is electricity, energy trade. I think, you just name it. I think in each and every aspect, the two countries, as well as, the Eastern South Asia, if one can define it like that, are making significant stride, and that needs to be noted. And perhaps people of this particular region need to feel proud about the kind of achievement which Bangladesh has done and the kind of leadership the country has provided in this particular sub-region.
Yes, yes. Let me get in my colleague Ramesh quickly in here, and then I'm going to go across to Professor Dilwar Hussain as well. Ramesh, that point on the bilaterals, the deliverables on the annual this time around, a lot of buzz. There could be 2 or 3 agreements that would be signed, reportedly, especially the FTA that we are all keenly looking at. A bit more on that, and then we go to Professor from Dhaka.
Absolutely. When the two principals, Sakal, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, meet for delegation level talks here in Dhaka on the 27th, they can be expected to discuss the entire range of issues, including, but not limited to, connectivity, trade, investment, cultural ties, people-to-people ties. A number of MOUs can be expected to be signed towards the end of those talks here in Dhaka, and the two leaders can also be expected to jointly inaugurate some projects of vital interest to both countries. In the last few weeks, we've seen connectivity being ramped up between India and Bangladesh in terms of railways, in terms of roads, in terms of inland waterways. We've seen PM Modi inaugurate the Moitri Setu, or the Friendship Bridge, linking India's northeast with Bangladesh. Just a quick point, Sakal.
Sure.
In today's interconnected world, it is people say that geography is history. But if you ask me, geography remains as relevant as ever, and Bangladesh's location makes it vital for India's interest. Remember, Bangladesh links or straddles both South Asia and Southeast Asia in terms of India's outreach to the Southeast Asian economies, Myanmar, Thailand, and so on. And Bangladesh is increasingly becoming a central figure in India's BIMSTEC outreach as well, at the expense of SAARC, which Pakistan is holding ransom to. So we've seen a rising profile for Bangladesh in regional affairs as well.
Yes, in fact, let me take this particular point to Rajesh Jha, Prasar Bharati correspondent who continues to report from Bangladesh itself. Bangladesh, Rajesh, just over to you, being central to India's neighborhood policy, and and what India means to Bangladesh in terms of India being one of their very, very important partner in connectivity and commerce. This particular visit and the agreements that Ramesh quickly touched upon, the way they're going to further bolster the relationship between the two countries. Rajesh, give us a sense, the broader canvas, how the way this relationship has moved forward. Rajesh, can you hear us? Okay, let's try and connect with Rajesh Jha, and let's meanwhile get in Professor Hussain. Yes, sir, please go ahead. The broader canvas of relationship and...
the relationship between India and Bangladesh is often...
Okay, do we have Rajesh with us? I think we'll try and... let's go back to Professor Dilwar Hussain. Dilwar Hussain, Saab, just to understand the broader canvas of the relationship since 2009, many would say 2009 onwards, we have seen a certain kind of upswing between India and Bangladesh in terms of diplomatic ties. Not really comparing, but just to understand India-Bangladesh ties under Khalida Zia regime and now Sheikh Hasina regime. Is it irrespective of the ruling dispensation, who is there at the top, the relationship will consolidate come what may?
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely, I expect, relationship has gone to the extent, it cannot be reversed by the change of regime in Bangladesh. And that has already been, tested in the case of India. You know, the current relations that we see between Bangladesh and India, particularly that I have been emphasizing over the last 10 years or more. It started with Congress, coalition government, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, and then it continued with much bigger in the current, under the current Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi. So we can see that I think the relationship has been consolidated in such a multidimensional and comprehensive way. I don't think there is any chance, but still, you know, domestic politics is a very fluid and very different type of factor that we, the students of international relations, we know. These has some impact. But what I strongly believe that the way the relationship between the two countries has been consolidated, and as our other speakers are focusing on the broad canvas of the relationship, which is really very important. Now we see not only just...
But sir, Bangladesh has also been lauded for the economic resurrection of sorts. In fact, your economic parameters are worth appreciating, and this is coming at a time when the world is under the gloom of the impact of pandemic, economically speaking. Just a bit of a elaboration on that as well, because Bangladesh also happens to be India's largest trading partner and the most important development partner. Where does this take in terms of economic component between the two nations?
Absolutely. This is the vital point. You know, one has to recognize, and I really appreciate. The kind of appreciation that we receive. But definitely, we have strengths, and that have been unprecedented in the history of Bangladesh. And you know, in South Asia, Bangladesh is the second largest economy. We have already overtaken Pakistani GDP. So you know, one has to actually rethink and change their mindset. I know. As an observer of foreign policy or diplomacy, you know, we have some misperceptions or some sort of stereotypes in understanding politics in South Asia or economy in South Asia. Now we need to revisit, and if you see the achievement of Bangladesh, I as a Bangladeshi, I'm very proud, but I don't like to just to say by myself, but you see. Sure. The progress of Bangladesh in the area of economy, in the area of social development, as Dr. Shruti was also emphasizing. Look at the all the social indicators. From child mortality and to gender gap index. All these. We are advancing. The people are working very hard so that we suffered from natural disasters and poverty for some time, but now, if you just compare our achievement in one decade, and if you take the yardstick in 2008 or 7, and if you see that today's time, you see a big difference. In our GDP has quadrupled. It has increased more than 4 times just in 10 years. So this has to be highlighted in our relations between Bangladesh, India, and this economic component. I think. Where actually both India and Bangladesh definitely would benefit a lot, and also engagement would actually help other sectors, cultural, social, and security.
Yes, I
and
can see
all
my
the
colleagues smiling out there on the other sectors mentioned. But you know, that very strongly worded op-ed by Honorable Prime Minister, the fact that, Ramesh, very quickly over to you, the title, I mean, look at the title, Imagining a Different South Asia. A different South Asia with
Indeed.
Bangabandhu. That is something, would you say the way Prime Minister has set the tone in the sense that this is how it's going to look like, more stronger, more robust, India, Bangladesh together? Ramesh.
Sakal, listening to Professor Dilwar Hussein's intervention there just moments ago, I was struck by how prescient, how relevant is the title of PM Modi's
That's
op-ed
right.
this morning, published in the Daily Star. The title is Imagining a Different South Asia with Bangabandhu. And in his piece, he asked this question: imagine a scenario if Bangabandhu was not assassinated on 15th August 1975. Would things have been different? If so, how? And he goes on to say a number of opportunities could have arisen, and Bangladesh-India ties could have been at a whole new level if Bangabandhu were alive and had been able to steer the nation for more time than as was the case, as history suggests. So clearly, a lot of optimism in the relationship, and PM Modi himself has said in his pre-departure statement, Sakal, yesterday, that he says India has an abiding interest in working together with Bangladesh and supporting Bangladesh's development strides, especially under PM Sheikh Hasina's leadership over the last decade and more. So clearly, a lot of issues on the agenda as we speak, and tomorrow, Dhaka evening time, the two can be expected to hammer out a number of MOUs and jointly inaugurate projects which will have immense relevance and direct relevance to people-to-people ties across both nations.
And Dr. Smriti, you wanted to come in here, ma'am, very quickly, the message, the larger messaging of this editorial penned by Prime Minister.
I think he has expressed the, Prime Minister Modi in the Daily Star editorial has expressed the sentiment which was also expressed by the founding father of Bangladesh. I always go back to the 1972 February speech at Paltan Maidan in Kolkata, where he said that, India, Bangladesh are like brothers. So when he was asked what kind of relationship he envisages as far as India and Bangladesh is concerned, and he said in that particular speech that it is eternal and enduring. And I think what Prime Minister Modi has, in the Daily Star editorial has, opinion piece has actually, in fact, emphasized the vision of the founding father of Bangladesh and how visionary he was to look at the relationship in 1972 and the kind of vision he had for the region. And he said that probably, we can take inspiration from that particular vision as far as shaping of not just the bilateral relations, but shaping of our interaction within the region is concerned. So therefore, Bangabandhu remains relevant even today. It is also the Mujib Borsho, which India and Bangladesh are celebrating the birth centenary of the founding father of Bangladesh. So therefore, I think, it is the time to look back at how he envisioned not just the region, but also the bilateral relations, and take inspiration from that while shaping, the ties in the larger, the regional and the global context.
See, ma'am, a little bit more, because you following Bangladesh's politics so closely. The way Sheikh Hasina's uninterrupted governance, the track record, the parameters that you talked about, stable government in place in the sense, thankfully no terror attacks post 2016, her apt handling of Rohingyas. I would not talk about China here. Let's not waste our time talking about China here. But the whole 1 decade and the positioning of Bangladesh. The positioning of Bangladesh vis-a-vis the geopolitics, the way the geopolitics has changed amid COVID times. At that particular juncture, you're inviting Prime Minister Narendra Modi, spearheading Operation Maitri, where the world is looking up to India. You're inviting Indian Prime Minister. He's part of your big celebration, big ticket National Day. What's the message that Sheikh Hasina wants to send across to the world?
I would say, she's one of the strongest prime minister in the region. She's very confident. She has the support. She has the popular mandate. She has the support, and she is very confident about the kind of development she has brought in the past more than 10 years. Look at the kind Dilwar was mentioning, the kind of progress the country has made in the last 10 years. Is something which is, is worth emulating as far as, other countries of the region is concerned. So therefore, a prime minister who is doing so well economically has been able to, in a sense, deliver on many of the issues which she had promised in her manifesto, actually comes from that confidence. So since, you deliver on the promises to the people, and if people are doing economically well, it is no more the kind of Bangladesh which people had thought about in the past many years. So therefore, I think a confident elected leader obviously will have that kind of confidence to invite India, with which it shared the blood, as Delwar was mentioning during the 1971 war. So this is, I just said that today is one of the most significant day of in the history, and this is the day where we need to remember the kind of the cooperation, the kind of like, for example, the meeting of mind in 1971, both people, government, bureaucracy, and the military person, to come together to fight the liberation is something unique in the history. So a leader who is, this is her third term, who is extremely confident. She has taken action against, the terrorists. In 2016, we have not seen the kind of attack
Yes,
which we
that's
have
right.
seen before. So therefore, when you are doing very well and you have successes in many of the parameters, as we look at, any particular state. So when you are success in each and every parameter which is measured, as far as a country is concerned, to look at the kind of progress a particular country has made. So
Okay.
obviously, she is a confident leader, and this particular visit, where in spite of some domestic opposition, she has gone ahead with this particular visit and has received Prime Minister Modi, speaks about her leadership, her confidence, and the kind of popularity she also has within Bangladesh.
And let's also talk about the kind of popularity that our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi has in Bangladesh. I'm going to quickly hand it over to my colleague Ramesh, a bit more on that. What do you sense there? I mean, you've been there reporting, sending your exclusive reports. A quick word on that, and after that, I'll take the same question to Professor Hussain. Ramesh, you first.
Right. Sakal, since you were asking us about what Bangladesh or where Bangladesh might go from here looking into the future, may I just tell our viewers to put this in the context. Prime Minister Modi in his op-ed this morning also mentioned, which has not caught attention that much, and that is that he says this part of the world contains the largest concentration of population of young people. Imagine if the youth of India and Bangladesh joined forces together, collaborated, they could have accomplished so much more. And in that context, he says, this could have been the perfect antidote to the virus of extremism, radicalism. In other words, it could be the perfect vaccine against all those evils of society pervading many parts of the world. So he has struck a note of, struck a chord with the people with this op-ed here, number one. Number two, incidentally, Sakal, this might interest our viewers as well, looking at the generation next of Bangladesh.
Okay.
Besides his other engagements, later today, he will interact with the youth icons of Bangladesh. So clearly, PM Modi investing a lot in generation next of Bangladesh, looking to the future to ramp up ties going forward, because he is looking at the potential of the youths of both countries, India and Bangladesh in particular, to work together and to collaborate going forward on innovation, on technology. And so clearly a lot of emphasis on meeting a cross-section of society, including the youth, number one. Number two, there is, as I mentioned, a groundswell of support for India, the government, its policies, and that is primarily because there is a shared legacy, a shared history, and people here, as I mentioned before, have chosen to draw the right lessons from history and implement them going forward of successive generations. So clearly, there is a palpable excitement as we speak here in Dhaka laying out the red carpet to receive Prime Minister Modi. And remember, he is the first leader in the last week or so. Remember, the leaders of Maldives, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, all had come since 17th March when the celebrations began.
Okay.
And it will conclude on 27th.
Okay.
And PM Modi is the first leader from this part of the world to actually travel outside of Dhaka, and
Yes.
he's become the first leader to actually pay a visit and pay homage as a mausoleum of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman
Yes.
outside Dhaka tomorrow in the morning, and at Tungipara, the birthplace, ancestral home of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and that has gone down very well with a lot of people here in Dhaka.
Yes, on that very specific point, we're going to show this report to our viewers, requesting Professor and Dr. Smriti, please stay with us. Ramesh, you as well. We're going to talk about this a bit more, as mentioned by my colleague Ramesh. In fact, Bangladesh has welcomed Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a big way, especially the people of the Matua community in Orakandi. A sacred shrine of the Matua community in Orakandi in an important destination is an important destination in Prime Minister's two-day visit to Bangladesh. Prime Minister will also be addressing a public rally of sorts here. We have this report by team of Doordarshan. Take a look.
During his two-day visit to Bangladesh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit a few prominent temples in the neighbouring country amid his tight schedule. One such temple of the Matua community members is in Orakandi. Matua community members count this temple as one of their biggest faith centres. The founder of the Matua community, Hari Chand Thakur, was born in Orakandi. Just as Ayodhya is associated with Lord Ram and Mathura with Sri Krishna, the same way is Thakur Nagar in Orakandi associated with the Matua community.
Harichand Thakur came at night time and under the tree described his vision to Guruchand Thakur and his younger son about the presence of a temple here, where the idol of Lord Lakshmi Narayan was placed, and devotees are offering prayers here. Later, as per his description, a temple was built at the same location.
Orakandi, a sacred shrine of the Matua community in Gopalganj, is an important destination in Prime Minister's two-day visit to Bangladesh beginning on Friday. The Prime Minister will pay his respects at the Guru Harichand Thakur's shrine. Prime Minister Modi will also interact with the members of the Matua community and address a public meeting there. The Matua community was founded by Guru Harichand Thakur in the early 19th century. Members of the sect included the Namashudras, who were considered untouchables. The objective of Thakur's reform was to uplift the community through educational and other social initiatives.
Harichand Thakur is an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, Lord Rama and Lord Krishna. Harichand Thakur came to preach name of the Lord. The objective was to inculcate harmony among people.
Matuas trace their ancestry to Bangladesh, and a large chunk of the community moved into West Bengal following the creation of Bangladesh. It was Guru Harichand Thakur who helped Matuas rehabilitate in India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also visit Jashoreshwari Kali Mandir during his two-day visit to Bangladesh. The temple is one of the 51 Shakti Peeths, as per the Hindu mythology, scattered across India and neighbouring countries, with 6 being in Bangladesh.
This is from in Satyayug, and the Lord Honori was built this mandir in ancient age.
In 2015, Prime Minister Modi had visited temples, including the Ma Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. Prime Minister Modi had also visited the Ramakrishna Mutt during that trip. In a world stricken by the grief of COVID-19, Prime Minister's visit to Bangladesh comes as his first overseas visit since the pandemic began. Not only will this visit strengthen Indo-Bangladesh friendship, but it will also add new dimensions to it. With Ramesh Ramachandran in Dhaka, Bureau Report, DD India.
So a temple visit there, Ramesh, before we wrap up, amongst other events that are part of Prime Minister's packed itinerary, also happens to be one of the many firsts of any visiting dignitary in Bangladesh. Ramesh, quickly.
Right, just to walk our viewers through the remaining of the engagement, Sakal, today and tomorrow. After his visit to the National Martyrs Memorial, Prime Minister Modi will interact with other leaders of political parties here in Dhaka, including from the freedom fighters, the Mukti Jodhas, the youth icons, as I mentioned, the alliance leaders, as well as the opposition. Now, that is important because there's several concerns about how India might play itself out in the domestic politics here. So PM making a point to meet a wide range, a cross-section of political leadership here in Bangladesh as well. And later in the evening, he will go to the parade ground for the National Day celebrations, followed by a cultural event hosted by PM Sheikh Hasina. And tomorrow, he will travel, as you mentioned in that report, to the Jeshureshwari temple. This is his first visit by any head of government to the temple there in Shatkhira, at some distance away from Dhaka. And that temple, Sakal, is in Ishwaripur area of Shamnagar, and it is dedicated to Goddess Kali. And we know that PM Modi is a great devotee, ardent devotee of Goddess Kali.
Yes.
And this, as I mentioned, is the first visit ever by a head of government to that temple, the Jeshureshwari temple. And later he will visit the mausoleum of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and at Tungipara, and pay his homage to the father of Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And later he will address the Motuwa community and go to Orakandi and pay a visit there as well. So all in all, a packed 2 days for PM Modi, and towards the end of it all will be his delegation level talk with PM Sheikh Hasina here in Dhaka, towards the end of which one can expect a number of MOUs to be signed by both leaders.
All right. And Ramesh will continue to stay with us on this rolling broadcast, but I will have to quickly take, closing comments very quickly, 30 seconds each. I'm going to come to Dr. Smriti Patnaik first. Well-timed visit and taking Indo-Bangladesh ties altogether to a new heights.
I would say that relationship as has been described as a golden chapter, but I would say that we should not close eyes to some of the issues which continue to threaten the bilateral relations. One is the water issue. Probably we need to be much more imaginative than we have been in the past to resolve some of the issues. Perhaps a basin-wide arrangement, to look at the water issue probably would be preferable. Second issue is, which always comes up, is also the non-tariff barrier. As we are progressing, as I understand, perhaps the two countries may sign the CEPA, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. While we move forward in the trade issues, we need to iron out the non-tariff barrier, which in fact hampers, the bilateral relations. So therefore, these are the two issues I think both the countries need to put their head together and progress ahead and truly make it really the golden chapter of the bilateral relations.
Yes, Professor Hussain, your thoughts, please.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Definitely, I agree with Shruti. I mean, this is important. But, two things. One is that, we need to translate all the decisions, all the goodwill that Bangladesh and India currently have into the reality. And that is one thing. And then some issues, as Shruti has already mentioned, about water, about our border relations. These are some of the areas where actually both the countries can put more thought and so that every relationship has some challenges and opportunities and prospects. We know in Bangladesh-India relations have prospered so much. We want more progress so that we both the countries can deal with some of the issues that some people want to identify.
The bottom line is that India's ties with Bangladesh rest actually on a very, very strong foundation, which dates back to history. We have a huge legacy. India-Bangladesh historical bonds. That is something which will never ever change. Thank you very much. I'll have to thank Professor Dilwar Hussain. It was such a pleasure having you, sir, from Dhaka, and also Dr. Smriti Patnaik, Research Fellow, IDSA. Really, really pleasure to have you as well, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your insights. And of course, Ramesh, you have a long day ahead. He continues to be with us throughout the day. And I'm going to take a very short break. Our special presentation, India-Bangladesh Ties Golden Jubilee, continues on DD India. On the other side, my colleague Amrit joins you with more. Stay with us. Namaskar.